All right, thank you for joining us today for 4 things successful people know about themselves. I have Bill Bonnstetter with us, and I'm Ron Bonnstetter, and we have a couple people that are monitoring the chat room if you've had a chance to put some comments in there about some things you believe successful people possess, and we can review those toward the end of our webinar. Let's take a look and see where we go with this today, Bill, and put some things together. For example, if you're going to look at the whole person, what do you think that means?
Well, I think that means looking at their education, their experience, their behavior, what motivates them, their skills, their emotional intelligence, their worldview. So many times when we really talk about people and what makes them successful, we have a very narrow view of that, and we don't really look at the total person. And in many cases, we just have an opinion that one assessment will sort of tell the whole story of what is making this person successful.
I'll tell you, when I look at this picture, it sort of reminds me that sometimes when we look at the whole person, we don't like what we see, but it's probably important to be able to see it, huh?
Absolutely.
You know, you were mentioning a whole list of things there, and it came to mind that you actually have a book that might be discussing some of those items.
Yes, we address all 7 of those, but let's point out experience, for instance. I know so many people, when they're trying to hire somebody, they want 5 years of experience or 10 years of experience. And while that may be a good thing, what is really important is what are the skills that a person would develop during 5 years of experience? Because 5 years of experience doesn't mean that you developed any skills that we're looking for. 5 years of experience doesn't mean that you will be successful in the current job or the next job. Because if experience always led to success, all experienced people would be successful.
Well, let's break this down for starters. In terms of the first item that we've got up here, it's really about how you do what you do. You know, and as we thought about this, there's a slide that comes to mind that I see every morning. And in other words, you make choices, and in some cases you have to either go to Bloody Basin or Tranquil Trails. Actually, Bill, you probably use Bloody Basin more often than Tranquil Trails, don't you?
Yes, I do. That's my favorite left turn. It takes me to both my cleaners and the grocery store. But let's talk in terms of, there's many paths. And how we do what we do is an important part of us. And it's an important part of successful people because understanding how we do what we do can help you avoid some stress. Because as I go down and past that, are you speeding? Are we following the speed limit? Are we going to make a left turn after we turn on our turn signal and get into the proper position? Are we following all the rules of the road?
Yeah, so it's really all about the decisions you make.
Yes, and not only those decisions, how we make those decisions, how we go about making decisions is something that successful people understand about themselves, because I sometimes have to adapt my behavior to fit the situation. So if you're driving in a 45-mile-an-hour zone, you should drive 45. But what about it all of a sudden changes to 25? Do you have to adjust and modify your behavior, or you just continue on at 45?
You know, there are indications. Obviously, behaviors are observable, and you've been giving good examples of things that are observable. When I think about that, I also think that the behaviors show up even in our offices, which I'm really, really grateful that we did not use pictures of our offices in this image. But how you maintain your premises actually is an indication of some of those behaviorals. Would you agree?
Yes, and I've done research on offices to help us identify the person behind that, because how we maintain our offices also gives me an indication of how you want to receive information that influences you.
You know, we're doing some more brain research on this topic, and I really am finding this interesting. How you want to receive information is a crucial factor in either turning people on or turning people off. And we're really gathering a lot of neat information on triggers and words that people don't like. So that's another neat component of behaviors.
Yeah, and this is really critical, because successful people are able to adapt their behavior to send information, but I don't think we're able to adapt our brain on how we want to receive it. So successful people have to really be in tune with themselves. And when something is very important to them, they have to make for sure that they're going to receive it in the correct way. I'm very visual. And I honestly, a lot of times, don't know what people are talking about until they visually tell me what they're talking about and show me exactly what the things are happening there. So
makes sense. Now this one's fascinating, Bill, because we've been doing all this brain research and we've been really looking at precognitions. We've been looking at decision making actually before you even think about the decision. And so it's a precognition. And I'm starting to realize not only does it work on words that don't work, but we are really tying into body language and we're not even aware of it. I think successful people are aware of body language and its impact on conversations, on communication, and they make modifications. And that becomes a crucial component of what you've been talking about too, this modification.
Yes. When you're giving a great speech and they walk out on you, that's a good indicator. It could be good feedback. But, not everybody walks out. All right. And, the body language is actually controlled by the brain.
Absolutely.
And the brain is sort of saying, I don't like this. And if the brain is saying, I don't like what I'm hearing, the body language sort of illustrates what is going through the brain. So really understanding, I think successful people really are attuned into the other people. Yeah. In other words, I think sometimes people's mouth opens, their brain dies. But successful people are able to, again, read that other person and look for the key things that's actually driving them. And in fact, Ron, I've got some research where we had identified the people ahead of time. We knew who they were, and we started giving them a presentation that was right on with the way they wanted to receive information. And then we changed the pitch to totally talking to a different person than they were, and we could observe the body language change. In fact, we actually videotaped it and then played the videotape back so that other people could see it. Because, again, the business that we're in is helping people be all they can be, help them be successful. We have to make for sure that they're really picking up on the things that we talk about.
I've been working with a group of people that are very successful in helping me with this body language component. And you're absolutely right, picking up on the nuances. I'll bet you if we looked at those videos, we would actually physically see changes in the people, and a successful person would pick up on that. And I'll tell you one example that working with a successful group, they're indicating that it starts with eye contact and handshake, that they can read lots of things from the handshake. So we're going to be giving more information on that down the road.
Yeah, but if you're in the wrong culture, your body language will indicate you're in the wrong culture.
Yeah, the misfit comes across.
Yes.
Let's look at the second component here of successful people and what they're aware of. They're aware of why they do what they do.
Absolutely. Oh, look at those ducks. Why do those ducks follow each other? Why do they fly in a V form? Why did they do all these things? Now, we could read articles where some scientist is talking about that, but what we're trying to ask you to do to look deep inside of yourself and help us understand or help yourself understand why you do what you do.
This is really, actually, this picture is perfect because there's purpose there and there's a decision, but it's not a conscious decision. Actually, we know the ducks seem to know how to do this. And we have a fascinating thing going on with the why we do what we do. We're not always cognizant of why we do what we do. And because, let me give you some words that I'm starting to realize from our brain research. The why could be described as a motivator. It could be described as a driving force. It could be described, and here's the keys. There's sort of equal words here. So motivators equal beliefs. Beliefs equal mindsets. Mindsets equal motivations. And all of these are happening at a precognitive level in the most cases. So you have this knee-jerk reaction that is filtering incoming information that's driving some of your whys, and it drives the decisions on how you spend your leisure time, how you make decisions, how you interact.
Absolutely. They're really filters. And the why behind using the brain, it's sort of telling us how and why you value certain things and why you value something more important than others. And there are some things in our life that we just totally don't want to participate in. I want people that are listening to us to start thinking, are there some things that you just say, I will never do? Okay, because we have both sides of the why.
We really do. We need to think about that because most of our time in this field, we talk about what to do. We talk about the upside on behaviors. And we need to recognize this is bilateral, that there are really two ends of this spectrum. And actually, the research we have on the brain indicates that many times the antithesis is driving decisions more than the positive side. So what we don't like is a stronger reaction than what we do like. And that becomes crucial because you can really goof up a communication or a sales because of hitting triggers of things that people do not like.
What I find interesting is sometimes we'll have people that'll have the same goal, identical goals. So we have an identical why we're going to do this, but they differ on how. And so here, while they agree on one thing, they differ on how to achieve that particular goal. Now, if you have
You're talking about our staff meetings?
Yeah. Okay. If you have the same goal, hey, that's a real plus. But think about if we have two people with different goals and the same how. That's a major problem because we really got to get on this why. But let me share with you the most difficult thing with why is understanding ourselves along this line and understanding successful people along this line. And the reason I'm pointing that out is our brain is not designed for total self-discovery. It's like a library. You go into your brain, you got to find the right source, the right information to help you discover. And this is why we have built in assessments to help successful people. And Ron, the reason we're talking about this is that we've been spending the last 30 years working with people and seeing what successful people bring to the job. And we'll cover that a little bit more in detail in the end here. But successful people really do understand what's driving their bus and their goals, and then they look for how do I achieve those.
So they have self-awareness is what you're really saying.
Absolutely. Self-awareness, I don't think we talk about it enough. I don't think people really pay attention because it's a natural thing for us as humans to look at other people, to point fingers at other people, to notice how other people are unique or different. But we really have trouble reading and interpreting ourselves.
That's what spouses are for.
Okay.
Oh, maybe assessments.
That's the next go-to-meeting.
Okay. Let's look at the third component of successful people and their awareness level. And that deals with the what you can do. And they have some really neat insights into their own abilities.
Well, this is a great topic, what you can do, because there are some people that are really clear on what they can do. But there's other people that don't have a clue of the talent they have. And to me, that's really a sin. It's terrible when I see talented people, but they don't know they have it, and therefore they're not using it. So when we look at successful people in sales, in management, in business, in education, you can name any occupation, they're all somewhat unique. There's not one thing that we could identify. We couldn't write one book that said, here, do all of these things and you will be successful in any walk of life. Because it's you, the total person that we're talking about, and the different parts of the total person. So understanding what you can do from your knowledge. I happen to have a master's degree in business education. A lot of people have never heard of a master's in business education, but that was prior to MBAs becoming popular.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my coursework was more along teaching, educating people, understanding the educational process. An MBA is more business courses that I took, but with a little different slant, more running a business.
And successful people seem to have more of these skills than the average dog. And this relates to what's on the screen right now. It really stares at me, and that's that word experience, because that's where this list of skills comes from, is experiences and getting out there and doing things that build new abilities and new insights and new skills.
Yeah, let's talk about that because this goes back to when you're young. Did you raise your hand and volunteer to be involved? Did you want to be involved in the leadership of your class? Did you want to be involved in sports? Did you want to be involved in music, in speech? Were you a part of a group, or were you out there all by yourself, being solo? My first experience in a spelling bee was, I think I was the first person out.
Yeah, Fridays were not a good day.
But again, let's stay with this knowledge and experience, because we're underplaying experience because we're not really addressing what did we learn through the experience. We're not able to maybe quantify the real skills that were developed in that experience. But do you think you could actually hand somebody a book on teams and have them read the book and expect them to be a team player at the end of the reading of that book?
No, not at all. This has problems on both ends. Not only do you not know what you get out of an experience, we've actually interviewed people with specific skills that are very, very well developed. And frankly, they cannot identify where they got it.
I know that. That was part of our research, because these things happen so slowly over time. Now, we do know that successful people have accumulated more skills. And I think of successful people have exposed themselves to more things, both on the work and in volunteering, involved in other activities with their kids. I was a cub master at one time, and I've never ever thought of, wow, did I really build some skills leading a pack of kids? Mm-hmm. All right. I also coached Little League Baseball. Did I develop any skills there?
Well, let's tie this together for a moment. We've looked at the how, we've looked at the what, and the skills and the why. And I really think that a successful person sort of has a grasp on all of these items, and as a result, they put themselves in a situation where they can maximize the use of these skills and ultimately gain a sense of happiness and tranquility in themselves. And in the process, they are very successful people.
Okay. So where do you find happiness? Now, I want to address one of these things. Happiness, whose responsibility is your happiness?
I know the answer to that.
You're accountable for your own happiness. No, Ron, what you're really accountable for is discovering where are you happiest.
Yes, and discovering your passions.
Yes.
And in the process, I think this is a neat list, because in the process of discovering your passions, and when you have a match between what you have and what you possess in these items we've talked about and what you do, you eliminate stress.
Yeah, now let me just talk about some people I've known in my life. I've known some people that I could call them ski bums. They really enjoyed the outdoors. They really enjoyed skiing. So they would work in corporate America to make enough money to go skiing. Now, what if they would have actually worked at the ski resort? See, they're living in their passion. They're next to it. At the end of their shift, they can actually put on their skis and go do something. Now, that may not be the best example, but what I'm trying to do is get people into work in which they're passionate about, because these intrinsic rewards are so important to people, and so much stress is caused by being in the wrong environment. And then I want to circle around here. Successful people sort of create their own environment. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then we have other people that just sort of let other people shape their environment, their job. And so one of the points I'm trying to get here is that we really need to discover ourselves, to understand more about ourselves that would allow us to make those decisions, rather than say, I need a job, I got to pay next month's rent, and I will take the next job that somebody will hire me on. We really need to say, what is my talents, my skills, my experience, my education? Where is my home? I need to find my own job fit, rather than wait for corporate America in the next 40 to 50 years to really wake up to the fact that if we can match people to their jobs, everybody wins and everybody's happy.
If we really adhere to this, this is going to be put up on our website. I think that people need to be really thinking about this and reflecting on these components. And when you have a grasp on what you're really all about, obviously there'll be less stress. And I'm learning what ROI means. You see, I really thought when I came here that ROI was region of interest, because I study neurology. But region of interest apparently isn't the answer to that. It's, return on investment. And the bottom line is, if you can get people that are really matched and have maximized these 4 items, you're going to have more profit. You're going to have more profit in a bigger sense, not just in a financial sense, because you're going to be happy in work and in life.
Yeah. We talk about less stress. Absolutely. A little bit of stress is good for you, but if you're in the right job, it's a positive stress. I've got a goal. I have to do this by Friday. I'm like so excited about other people seeing it once I complete it. So I'm under stress to complete it by Friday, but my passion is what's driving it. And then I also work with some people that are so passionate about what they're doing, they never can finish a project and let other people see it because it's never quite good enough. So again, it's back to understanding self. When do I let go? When do I say, this is version 1, and I've got version 2 well in my mind, but I'm going to let version 1 out there so that I can get some feedback from that. And, this feedback, successful people really do get feedback from others, and they pay attention to the feedback from others, because this is the way you understand yourself, is listening to that feedback. But you got to have some people around you that can give you the feedback in your manner, because some people give you feedback that turns you totally off.
Absolutely. Let's summarize this a little bit. We've really hit on these 4 components, and let's make sure that there are any other comments you might have that haven't come to bear yet on these items of how, why, what, and where.
Yes. How are we getting any comments coming in from?
I looked a moment ago and I did not see any, Bill. I think that we are so good that there's something coming up there under the questions. Oh, all right. I didn't look under questions. We need to look under questions, Bill. Okay. What do you think of that one? What it looks like when they're failing and how quickly to realign themselves. Well, first of all, successful people, I'm going to use you as an example. Here's the question. The question is, when they fail, how quickly did they realign? How quickly do they get back on top of things? Even though we're brothers, I didn't really grow up with you. I'm 12 years old, younger. And as a result, we sort of grew up separately. When I got down here to have a chance to really get to know you, I really don't think I've ever encountered a person that is more resilient. And I see success and I see failures with projects that we initiate around here on a regular basis. And the analogy I keep thinking of is a billiard ball. You are a billiard ball. I mean, you hit an obstacle and you don't even lose momentum. You just change directions. That's what successful people do. Successful people redirect and move new directions and do it rather quickly.
The other thing I notice about successful people is that when they have failure, they can get back up by themselves. They rebound by themselves. Their resiliency is internal. They don't have to rely on other people. So they're not sitting around feeling bad and other people come over and pat them on the back, try to get them up, try to cheer them up. They're out leading the band to the next rodeo, okay? And I don't know how to necessarily teach that, but when you start holding yourself accountable and set a few goals, you're starting to get on the right path.
Absolutely. So we really need to reflect on all of these items today and figure out how they impact our lives personally. And what are we going to accomplish and set some goals. And they don't have to be long-term at this point. They can be short-term.
Well, another thing I think I need to point out, Ron, is that successful people do not have the victim's mindset. It's not my fault. Okay? They take full accountability for their failures as well as their successes. And when I meet people that are always saying, it's not my fault. It's the government's fault. It's the boss's fault. It's the business's fault. There's no chance for them to really be successful. They need to really understand that mindset that they have. And when you talk about blaming others, your brain actually does not take on any new information other than I have a part of my brain that just allows me to blame others. But when I made a mistake, and I do make mistakes, I learn from it, and my brain says, Bill, would you mind if I reminded you of that later on? And that's the key to taking accountability. That's the key to growing. That's the key to being more successful. And that's the key to learning from your mistakes, because all successful people have one thing that is really totally in common, and that's failure.
Absolutely. And that resilience becomes a factor. Let's look at a couple of the other questions here and see what we have. Back on the a question about the where. And absolutely, the where is really the fit. We were talking about taking these skills you have, taking these behaviors and these motivators, and making sure that you actually are proactive in finding a fit with jobs, with life, with passions. So it's all really about fit. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and right now we're doing a lot of research with the high school students and college freshmen. And if you look at the results, how often college students change their majors, how often people major in one thing and then they employed the rest of their life totally in a job that's unrelated to their educational experiences. What I think we're talking about here is learning this back when we're in high school, starting to understand more about ourselves, understanding what it takes for us to be successful. Because here's a major point, Ron. Everybody can be successful if they find the right place. We're all diamonds in the rough, and we really must find the right home for us to grow. These saguaro cactus in Arizona are beautiful, but they won't grow in Iowa. In fact, today the weather, the rest of the United States. So we understand we can help all people grow, but all they really need to do is follow the path of what successful people have done. Yeah. And it's all knowledge of self and self-awareness.
We keep using this word, and here's a question that I want to back up and address. We really have someone here that's wanting us to define success. We keep using that word. How would you define success?
Happiness, it starts with happiness.
It really does.
Yes.
And satisfaction and, really feeling fulfilled.
Absolutely.
And that can happen in a number of settings. Those are sort of neat things. Here's an interesting question. And I'm going to read it because I want you to give the reaction. I'm not even going to give you an idea of how I would answer it. How early can young people begin taking assessments to understand the how, why, and what, and where about themselves? For example, how effective are these assessments for those in high school getting ready for college or just entering the workforce? What assessments would you recommend?
Well, we try to have all of our assessments with the 9th grade reading level.
Okay.
And I did that 20, 30 years ago. And I actually think the kids are smarter today than we were 20, 30 years ago. So it could go down into the junior high. I would say maybe by the time they're 12, 13, 14, and a little vary for some of the kids. But this can be the start of the awareness. And I really think that we need to start zeroing in on our behavior and our motivators first.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, let me preface that a little bit, because if I think about the things you've already made comments on, you've talked about soft skills being experience-based. And we have a lot of these young people that simply haven't had a lot of experiences. So when they compare themselves to a workforce, to adults, they feel a little bit, I think, put down or depressed about where they are on that continuum. Some awareness might not be bad, but the fact is behaviors and motivators are things they absolutely need awareness of to function. They need awareness that soft skills need to be developed through experience. And that's something that they can work on.
Yes. Now, as an adult and as a grandparent, my granddaughter just got elected to the student council. She's in 7th grade. I'm looking at and visiting with her about the skills she can develop. I think we can help others by identifying what you were just talking about. And if you never volunteer, you never take the risk of being elected to the student council. You never take the risk of being in band. You're going to limit your scope.
Yeah.
But basically, if you see a vision and you say, here's the skills I need to really find the place I want to be happiest at. Now, I know a lot of people that told me they went into sales because they like people. You know, I kept reminding them I had a dog that liked people that I could never teach to sell. So we need to really come to more of a grips. I know a lot of teachers that went into education because they like kids, and then they found out they couldn't even make a living doing that, and they had to leave teaching. But they spent 6 years preparing, or 5 years, whatever time, preparing to be a teacher, only to experience negative happiness in education.
No, Bill, that's a filter that you're using. It's one of your motivators. It's coming out in that statement. It's utilitarian. Because I worked with teachers too, and what I found is that I had people that loved science and came into being a teacher because they had a love of science and found out they hated kids. And that was not a good match either.
But so, how many years did it take them to figure that out?
That's the sad part. That is the sad part, because they really went through their entire undergrad planning on being a teacher. And in many programs, they didn't get out to interact in that setting until they were juniors or even seniors. And by then, you know, they had spent so much money down this road and they weren't prepared to do anything except work with people they didn't like. That was not good. You know, speaking of where you can discover this, we've put on the screen where you could actually take, if you had someone that was interested in behaviors and motivators and looking at more of these, this is a free assessment that you can take a look at that page and gather more information.
But you know, everything we've been talking about is really just echoing self-awareness. The earlier you can be aware of these things, the better your decisions, the better your career choices, the more you're apt to end up in a happy thing. It reminds me of a dentist I had in Muscatine, Iowa. He hated dentistry, but he didn't know it until he actually became a practicing dentist. He didn't realize he'd spend all day long with his fingers in somebody's mouth. You know, even though you're studying, you observe that, but he didn't understand the stress and the fact that there was no happiness in just filling a tooth.
Actually, I think I had him, and he kept wanting to have conversations, and it's really hard to have a conversation with your dentist. It didn't work out real well.
That's true. He did leave dentistry and opened up a bait shop, a boat shop, and that's where his passion was. He wanted to be on the river, experiencing the outdoors, and still making a living for his family, but doing something different.
Well, you know, we're going to have some more webinars coming up. We're going to take a little bit of a holiday break, but we've got one coming up on January 27th that you really ought to just put on your calendar right now and talk about motivation at work and how that might play out. And I think Adam and Rick may be heading that one up for us, and that'll be a webinar well worth your time to put on your calendar.
Absolutely, because they've been doing some real research in this particular area. And you're going to get some new ideas to illuminate this motivation at work that have never been talked about before.
Well, heading into the season here, it's time to reflect and kick back a little bit, look at the year in retrospect, and start thinking about the new year and how we can really maximize and become successful in all our endeavors. And with that lovely thought, Bill always likes to have the last word. So, Bill, what closing comments would you make?
Well, I would hope that we triggered some ideas in some people's minds today, and that if something comes up that we can be of value to you, help you, we're open for those phone calls, those emails, those comments. Take advantage of our free assessments to understand more about self. We've been doing this for 30 years, and this is one of the most important things we do, is really help people understand, because success starts really with understanding self. Science of self, self-awareness. The last book I read from Daniel Goldman, he was really talking about self-awareness from an EQ standpoint.
Yeah, and all of our brain research is leading us down the same road, that we really can make changes when we understand where we are. But it starts with awareness. It starts with knowledge of self. Well, with those comments, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. This will be up within 24 hours on our website, so feel free to drive others to this, and have a great holiday.